Okay, folks, this is a video on some more examples in lesson 3. Now, I noticed my camera's my light's kind of messing up here. Not exactly too sure how to fix that. I've just, whatever. Okay, so here we go. Here's two binomials. We want to multiply them. Yeah, we could use FOIL, or we could use the box method. So let me talk to you about the box method. You put one binomial here, you put another binomial here, and then it's just like the multiplication table. You multiply the row or the column and the row. So let's do these two guys. This box right here would be 2x squared. This box here would be 2x times 5 that's 10x. And then over here I'd have negative 3x. And then here I'd have negative 15. So big cheer here. So what does it all spell? Put it all together. 2x squared. Now what is 10x and a negative 3x? That's a plus 7x. And then minus 15. So there you go. This is called the box method of multiplication. We're using two binomials here, but you could do a trinomial and a binomial. And I do believe that will help each and every one of you. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to talk about a binomial squared. Notice my light is still sort of messing up. Not exactly too sure how to fix that. That's very interesting. So here we go. All right, so what I did is a binomial squared, and I just used the box method. That would be what? X squared plus 3x plus 3x and plus 9. Now let's see, that would be, what would that be? That would be x squared plus what? Well, 3x and 3x is 6x plus 9. Well, just like the little guy says at the bottom here, okay, is there a shortcut? There actually is a shortcut in doing a binomial squared. And that shortcut goes like this. Square the first, that's x squared. Multiply these two together. What is a plus 3 times x? That's the 3x. Double it, that's plus 6x. And then square the last, so it's going to be plus. That is a shortcut for doing a binomial squared. And it also is very, very important. So let me review and show you what you're able to do now. Okay, so let's just take something like 3x minus 5 squared. You could do FOIL, you could do box method, or square the first, 9x squared. Multiply these two together. Remember, that would be a negative 15x. Now double that number, minus 30x, and then square the last, plus 25. Folks, it really is just that easy. Okay? But don't forget, make sure you know what you're doing before this is a cemetery, and this is understanding, and shortcuts will kill understanding. So please make sure that you know what you're doing before you use a shortcut. Do it the long way first, folks. Okay? Alright, now the next thing I want to talk about is called a binomial cubed. I mean a sum of two binomials. No, a sum of two cubes. I'm sorry, I should go back and erase that. So here we have a cubed plus b cubed. Whoop. A cubed plus b cubed. Believe it or not, a cubed plus b cubed is the same thing as a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. Alright, now this is an example of can you follow me? Let's play follow the leader. First of all, is this a sum of two cubes? Well, that is a cube, but 8. 8 is what cubed? 8 is 2 cubed. And if that is not very clear to you, you need to go back and look at my other videos. So here we go. So this is what we're doing. We're going to follow my example. The first thing I'm going to do is do a little binomial, x plus 2. And the second thing I'm going to do is follow my pattern. So I square the first, that's a in this case is x, so x squared. I multiply them together, so 2 times x is 2x. But here the sign was positive and here the sign is what? Negative. And then I square the last or square the b, so this is plus 4. Remember, this is the base and this is the power. This is my binomial, this is my trinomial. You could use the box method to multiply that out. I know you're very excited about seeing that, but we're not going to do that right now. You could do that on your own. I'm going to finish off with this. I want to know if you could give me the binomial and the trinomial for this problem. Well, first of all, is it a difference of 2 cubes? I don't know. How do you know? That's a good question. Is it a difference of 2 cubes? How about 2y? Would that give me 8y cubed? All right, 27z squared. 3 what? 3z. That is exactly right. Now, over here at the top, we didn't do the minus. The minus is just going to look like this. If that's minus, this is minus, and this is the opposite sign, which is what? Plus. Okay? So, if I want to factor a difference of 2 cubes, I write the 2 bases, the a and the b. In this case would be 2y minus 3z. And then the last thing I do is I go through this process, which is what? I square the first. That's going to be 4y squared. I multiply them together and do the opposite sign. I multiply them together, which is what? 6yz. 6yz. But I do the opposite sign, so in this case plus, right? And then I told you the last is always that squared, which is plus 9z squared. Okay? So, that's pretty fancy right there, being able to know how to factor. Now, did you figure this out on your own? No, this is a form or a pattern, but algebra is a lot about patterns. I hope I didn't mess that up. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to talk about factor by grouping. But before we talk about factor by grouping, I want to make sure everybody's got this down about factoring. Okay, what is the greatest common factor? Well, what number is common to everybody? A 2. What letter is common to everybody? A is common. Matter of fact, there's 2 that are common. There's 2 here and 3 here. There's 2 that is common. And how about the B's? Right here. Okay? So what is my greatest common factor? I'll just write it here. 2a squared b. Okay? 2a squared b. Okay? Now, all right. What I'm going to do is I want to know what goes in here. Well, I'll show you 2 ways of doing this. First of all, sorry about that. I'm sort of struggling with my situation here. Okay, so is this missing anything? No, so that's just a 1 minus. Is this missing anything? Is this term missing any factors that are here? Well, yes, it's missing a 4. How about the a? It's missing 1a, and there's 2 b factors here. There's 1 there, so there's 1 here. Okay, if you're saying I am not getting this, then what you can use are what I call factor training wheels. That is factor training wheels. Put the greatest common factor here and here. Now it's kind of easy for you to figure out what it is. What's this over this? Same thing as 1. Negative, 8. How many times does 2 go into 8? 4. I've got some A's here. There's an A there, and I got 1B at the top. 4AB. Now you don't have to do this. You can kind of tell by looking. So I call these guys factor training wheels. Now, having said all of that, let's do this problem factor by grouping. Because believe it or not, this is not a trinomial, but there are two binomials that make that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to look at the first 2. Okay. First 2. What's common to them? Well, let's see. I've got a 6, and I've got an a cubed. Okay. Use the factor training wheels if you need them. Well, what I have here? 4a minus what? 3. Now, factor by grouping, I am really wanting to try to see if I can get a 4a minus 3. What can I factor out of the last 2 terms? Why, I could factor a 5 out. If I factored a 5 out, I would have 4a minus 3. How do I know that? Because if I multiply this out again, negative 20a and 15. Okay, now my question is, can you factor this? Well, yes, I could use factor training wheels. What's common to both of these guys? The thing that's common to both of them is that factor 4a minus 3. 4a minus 3. 4a minus 3. What's going to happen here? I've got 6a cubed. What would happen here if I divided that out? I'm going to have a minus 5. So one factor is 6a minus 5, and the other factor is 4a minus 3. Again, this is called factor by grouping, and it is a neat procedure that you could use. All right, let's see. I think I got one more question I need to share with you really quick. All right, probably the hardest thing about factoring is doing a problem like this. Now, your author of your book says find factors of 6 and 35 that will combine in some way to give you the 29. You know, I like that method. That method, you know, can really help. And I'm not going to show that right now. I'll show you another method. Can you take these two numbers and multiply them? If I multiply those two numbers, I'd have 180 and 30. That's 210. 210. Can you give me two numbers that multiply to 210? Well, 1 and 210. That doesn't help me. 2 and 105. Now what do I mean by that? What it is if you remember the previous video, we're going to have to add these numbers to get that middle number, because that's a plus and that's a plus. All right, well, let's try 7. 7 goes into 210 30 times. Let's add those numbers together. Get 37. We want to try to get, here I got what, 107, right? We want 29. Okay, let's see. How about 7? How about 10? 10. That would be 21. What would that be? 31. Seems like we're going in the right direction, right? We want to try to get a 29. Now I'm trying to figure this out. How about 15? Will 15 go into 21? Now you could do this old school, or 210, 15. 15 goes into that once with 6 left over. Does 15 go into 60? Why, yes, it goes 4 times. Now, notice these two numbers.